You know, you talked also about the external needs. You need to get the skills trained. But even that can't be effective unless the inside man has been addressed. All right, give Mr. Holmes another. Mr. Foster, you ready?
No choice.
All right, good.
Can I be heard? Okay. Hello, everyone.
Hey.
And thanks to the Almighty Creator that I'm even here to speak on my experience as far as the prison system goes. Knowing that it's one of the worst scenes I can think of, and then going back after you're blessed to come out, which is pure insanity. It gives you a feeling of defeat. I made my way into every facility on State Road. And though the places come in different shapes and sizes, it's all the same misery. Especially when you know it could have been avoided. What I can say is how you react to the things that can happen, especially when it's negative. Being held captive made me realize who I was. I'm the kind of guy who simply wants to get paid, as do us all, but it's different when you put materialistics over things like your freedom, when it's priceless. You can want something, but once you place a thing like money over things like freedom, it becomes a problem. It's something when you get like a hard bulk of time, as my brother here was telling us, 22 years, that's a fight. I was the go in for a year, come out, 6 months. It got to the point they called it sidewalk therapy. It wasn't like I was, coming home would be like how people would go to jail. It's a vacation when I come out here rather than going there. Because they were just so used to it. They're like, you again. Like everybody was like, so it just makes you think like, is this what I want? So it's also a thing of regression. When you are once again given your freedom and you realize it's time to get back. And the only get back is taking it slow. Because once you step out of forgetting where you just came from, or maybe you didn't forget, it's just automatically limiting yourself because you're only looking at right now. I would come out and see the guys I was with, they on a whole nother level within a matter of a year or a year and a half, and I'm looking like, we doing the same crime, and I just keep going to jail. And then when I come home, these guys, they even more better than what they were. And it's like, they elevating doing the wrong thing, and I know I can do the right thing if I just stick with what my Creator has in store for me. So it was like, you know, you want to go here, you want to go there, and I'm looking, and you fall right back into it, because if that's what you're around, people, places, and things, that's kind of like a big thing. Like, it really is. I learned that. So, you know, that guy, the guy who's having his way, having his fun, he probably never even went on a vacation, like how you did the unwanted vacation, I like to call it. And you like that, all right, maybe I can just do it one more time and do it a little smarter. And that's when you don't even worry about it. The cops been watching you since they let you go. You like, it don't even matter. Like, I'm not gonna look at my family starve or myself, so. And then it's like you can have a couple of good days, and it's like, okay, I'm back. You know, I'm a little smarter this time. I won't go back. I won't do it again. And that's when it happens. And it's like the little bit that you worked for, that you tried to work for, that you thought was work, you go back, and it's like it's all wiped away fast. And it's like, oh, how can I keep doing this to myself? So it made me just start loving myself, and then, you know, what is that solitary confinement, the hole? When they took me to the hole, I think that was like one of my best parts ever in that place, because now it's just you and God. Whoever you serve, it's just you and Him. So it was like, okay, this is what I'm here for. Like every day you waking up and they putting your food through the door, like you gonna bite it or something, they let you out. Like you gotta put your hands through the door, they cuff you, you pull it back, then they open the gate, now you can come out, feet shackled. It's like, dang, I only had a little bit of marijuana in here, I didn't kill nobody. But you know, it's just, it's only when you think on a certain level of just repetitiveness and, you know, all the rhetoric and just doing the things that you know aren't right, it's only a matter of time. Once that type of thing happened, it gave me a chance to reflect on what I've been doing with this precious air we breathe. Even though there are some positives, I did make a video in jail on recycling. It was like a little skit, like a contest. They actually still play it to this day at the House of Corrections. The CEO, they was like, this guy, out of everybody, why would they come to jail and film you? I'm like, I don't know. So, you know, each one of us in this room have a gift from God. It's just not until we see it. Me, I just had to go back numerous times to realize it. So, I had to realize if I don't start walking in it, that going back and forth to jail will be my life story. So, I now know I was there for a reason, besides the fact that there are laws in this world. I was blessed to meet a supporting cast of genuine people over at ICJ. That's Hannah, she's one of them. And also aligning with Decarcerate. Okay. You know, to live out the vision where we all see ourselves at the end of it. And so I don't know. It's like if you don't pray, I learned in there, I used to even talk to God, like after the food, like my nieces would probably like smack me if I tried to give them the stuff they would try to feed you in there. I still ain't gained my weight back yet, but and it's like, and you look and I just, every day, it just brought me closer and closer to what I needed to do. It was, pursue my grace, and then it's like, thank you God, I woke up again, because this is like, it's not meant, I mean, it's a chance where you won't wake up, so it's like, okay, and that's living out here. That's living just, you see it all every day on the news. It's people that go to work every day and do what they do, support their family the right way, and then still wind up getting hurt by a hoodlum or something. So it's like, I wouldn't even call it a hoodlum. I would say it's one of us, because that's just us not using our heads for the right energy. You take that long to take something from somebody, you could put a little more effort in getting your own. My charges were, it varies with me. I'm 25, and I'm not even proud to say this, but I got like 25, if they're not, I'm on 5 years probation now, but I had the cuffs on me 25 times. Like, you know, like 7 to 8 little lockups. And when I was 17, that was my first time being locked up. They didn't charge me as an adult. I won't do that to the system this time. But they helped me St. Gabe's. And I was cool, but my mom, she was the one that's like, I'm like, Mom, all I gotta do is have somebody to go to court with me, a guardian, and then I'm out. She said, I'm not going with you. I said, Mom, they'll keep me. Okay, you'll be fine. And so I stayed. The judge is like, okay, he's cool to go. He's like, Johnny, he has no guardian here. And he's like, okay, well, stand next to that wall. That was like my first time, like, oh, it's getting real. Like, what's going on? And it was just crazy, because she let me see what it was. She let me stay for like an extra month or so, like every 2 weeks. And like every 2 weeks it was like a court date for me, and then she didn't come out twice. And then when she finally came, I thought I saw heaven. I'm like, okay, we here. She was like, come on. So it took me to get a little older and bump my head. You bump, the harder you bump your head, the more you'll learn. I tell you that much. So, and it was just a blessing to have somebody like that who's not just gonna try to hide you from, like, I'm the youngest, so it's like, you would think that she would say, okay, I'm going to go get my baby. It's like, no, you're going to see. You really want to do this? And when she heard, like, I don't know, somebody in the neighborhood told her, like, your boy out here selling. And she came to me, I was like 15. And she was like, I heard you sell drugs. Your clothes packed. I heard they get their own houses too. So, so I just thank God for a mom like that just was going, this was hard. I remember I called home one time, Mom, I'm about to do like 5 years. Well, ride it out, son. I said, this lady, I went back in the cell ready for whatever. Mom said, ride out. But it is a bad experience. You really gotta dig in yourself and know what you're doing and just keep God first. Thank you for your time.
So, Mr. Foster, your mom was not an enabler.
No.
But I think the key point that you established so well for us was that when you get out, you need support. All right? And if men weren't going to support you, you found your support someplace else.
Right.
All right?
Yep.
Appreciate you.
Got it.
All right. I shared earlier that for about 10 years of my 25 years as a prosecutor, not a week went by when I didn't receive a call about the next presenter. There was a prominent psychiatrist in Philadelphia, Dr. Paul Fink. Anybody know that name? Yeah. Well, he called me all the time, and he certainly is not a fair weather liberal. He puts his efforts where his mouth is. And he would call me about this Tyrone Wirtz. He's doing this, he's doing that. George, you got to do something to help put Tyrone Wirtz in a position where the young people that I work with can hear his message. Well, I joked earlier about needing the cell phone number to the governor in order to have a sentence commuted or a record pardon. Well, he was able to have that happen. But it had nothing to do with him knowing the governor. It had everything to do with the governor finding out about the tremendous work, the tremendous contributions that he was making to this city while behind bars. Tyrone Wirtz.
First of all, thank you so much, George. Just like you heard about me, I heard about the work that George was doing through the Men United for Better Philadelphia and a number of organizations that I work with. I also think that we need to give Dr. Kirk and his two mini-me's a round of applause. This is fabulous. I sat on a lot of panels up at home, and this is really, really fabulous. And this guy from Fortune Society, he told me he's really powerful. And I was sitting here thinking, as I heard everybody's story, that I should just sit here and say ditto and let's move on. You know what I mean? Because as Cameron said, a lot of our stories are very, very similar. And Cameron talks about the way I dress. Yeah, I dress like this every day. Every day, because I take my freedom very, very seriously. And I do it for two reasons. One is for racial profiling. I don't wear no hoodie. Straight up, my thing is, if I'm walking down the streets and some come over the police radio, 6'2" black man just robbed 7-Eleven, and look at me and say, well, he didn't do it. I think he did. I mean, my life is hanging by such a tentative string that, I don't carry cash in my pocket. Everywhere I go, I use a card to keep a record of where I've been. I don't know nobody saying Tyrone Wirtz is over. No. You go down to 7-Eleven, check that thing, damn, 245. Straight up, And also, you can go to Walmart, any store that got a camera on it, you'll see me like this. Really, because I know how things work out in this place. So I try to put myself in a situation where I will be successful, not because of anything that I will do. I drove a friend down here today. He's an ex-offender. He got in my car. I told him, man, you got to get naked before you get in my car. I'll make sure you ain't got no guns or drugs on you. You know what I mean? Because that's the rest of the people going back to the penitentiary. So I'm very vigilant about that. Another reason I dress like this because of, it's not about me so much as it is about the men that I left behind. You know, there are thousands and thousands of men and women in the prisons of Pennsylvania, man, who deserve the same opportunity that I had, you know. I remember the day I walked out of Greater Fred after serving close to 37 years. I'm walking down the hallway. I came off the block. I was sitting in my cell. It was empty because I knew I was going home this day. Matter of fact, March 14th, Thursday, was a 2-year anniversary of mine. Now, I'm just really straight up. I'm from North Philly. I grew up hard. You know, was part of a gang. I consider myself tough as nails. You know, I don't show no weaknesses, don't cry. And I was in prison, in a maximum security prison in Graterford, with some of the toughest guys I ever met. The day I walked out of Graterford, I was coming out the hall. I was president of life rotation for 20 years, so I had a great privilege of leading some great men for 20 years in Graterford prison. And the day I walked out, came out and like 300 life, there's 800 lives in Graterford, right? So like 300 of them was in the hallway, I'm coming down the hallway, they hugging me, hey Todd, man, take care of yourself, and all that. And guess what? I'm weeping like a baby. Weeping like a baby. And because people say, how was it coming home? I said, it was bittersweet. You know, because, I mean, actually the sweetness was the fact that I was actually going home after serving 37 years, after being sentenced to life without parole, after believing in my own mind. I told myself that I was going to die here, especially with all the policy changes over the last 10, 15 years. And those buzzwords, war on crime, war on drugs, get criminals off the street. I was labeled as a murderer. That label right there was enough to deter any politician to take a vote to let me out. And so I walked out that prison crying like a baby because as I hugged each of those guys, these guys that I grew up with, they talk about Tyrone, you served 37 years? Oh, that's close to 4 decades. I'm a baby compared to some of the men and women that serve a life in Pennsylvania. I'm a baby. They are men and women, and I know some extraordinary women up in Muncie, Sharon Wiggins, Marie Scott, and those kind of women, and got 40, 45 years. And so, I leave Graterford, and like Cameron, it's just, I'm sitting up here listening, and it's so eerie how the experiences are the same. And George Mosley talked about Dr. Paul Fink, and I know Dr. Paul Fink. Many of I was in prison, and he's a psychiatrist. I always say psychologist. He's a psychiatrist, right? And I knew that. Well, 36 years in prison, there's this post-traumatic stress. I was going into a new environment, a new experience, and I knew that I was going to face some challenges psychologically. So I went to Dr. Paul Fink and said, Dr. Fink, will you serve as my psychological mentor as I reintegrate back into the community if I feel some anxieties and those kind of things? He said, absolutely sure. And just like Cameron, I was out the second day I was home, I'm walking down Market Street. It was cold, so everybody's kind of wrapped up. It's March 16th. And walking down Market Street, I'm a bundle of joy, you can imagine. After all these years telling yourself that you're going to die in prison, and you'll become okay with that because there was no way out. I'm walking down the street, hey, good morning, everybody, hey, how you doing? Nobody's speaking back. People talking to themselves. And I'm saying, like, what the hell? Because people kept saying, everything has changed. I said, damn, things have changed. So I immediately went back, got on the phone, called Dr. Fink, said, Dr. Fink, I'm experiencing some really traumatic psychological damage because everybody is talking to themselves and nobody is speaking. He said, Tyrone, people got plugs in their ears. They're talking on Bluetooth. I said, oh. He said, well, 10 years ago, those were my clients, but, So that's my experience, and life has been well. For me, it's been absolutely fantastic. I started working a week after I got out, and I always tell people when I talk that I am not opposed to child for reentry. I'm really not. My success is born out of basically three things. First of all, I was fully engaged while I was in Greater Philly. George Morsey talked a little bit about that. Second of all, I had enormous community support from some extraordinary people. And some of the people are here, like Brother Hakeem right there from Reconstruction. You know, those people. But most of all, I had exceedingly extraordinary support from my family. I mean, for the 37 years, my family came up to visit me every 60 days. The whole time. Even when my parents died, my sisters and brothers continued to come up to see me, and they were there waiting for me with open arms. And then I had 2 jobs waiting for me. I worked at Temple University for the Inside Out program. I also worked for the Public Defenders Association. You know, so I started working too. So when we talk about guys getting out and trying to reintegrate back into society, there are a lot of barriers. And like I said, it wasn't my experience, but I know. I mean, when I was incarcerated, I used to see guys, and Ziggy can tell you, they would go to school, as Cameron talked about, they would go to school, they would get their GED, they would go to college, they would go to welding class, they would go to carpentry class, they would go to brick making class, they would go to air refrigeration class, because they really wanted to change their lives. They're so proud to get their little certificates and they get their date to go home, and they be talking about going home or get me a job. You won't see me no more. 8 months later, a year later, they had to come walk me down the hallway. And their story is, man, I wanted to do the right thing. I went out and I looked for a job, but you know what? They were standing there with this big scarlet letter. Ex-offender. Doors began to slam in their faces. And you can't imagine the frustration. And I tell people all the time, I used to tell guys, man, the one thing you need to get out of your vocabulary is F it. But that's what happens when the frustration builds. And I don't understand how guys can even be successful and integrated anyhow. I mean, they put so many barriers, and some of them were just, you got to pay all your fees, court costs, fines. Then you got to pay a supervision fee. Mine is $30 a month. $30 a month. I mean, it's no problem for me, but most guys, they don't get $30 a month when you ain't got no job. How you gonna pay $4,000 in court costs, another $2,000 in fines, and then you got to pay all your parking tickets? I'm saying, like, wow. It would cause one to drink. I mean, absolutely. So when we talk about reentry, I think that the brother from Foreign Society and Cameron touched on it, about the psychological, the post-traumatic stress that one's experienced, that from just the experience of being incarcerated. I mean, when I was in Greater Philly, and I'm just going to tell you a little bit about, you know, how did I get to this point? Because when I went in, I was like a cold-blooded street boy. I went in, and this guy told my story, he told my story. You know, because when I was in school, elementary school, this teacher told me I was dumb, couldn't learn, I was, you know, I might well get a trade, because I wanted to be an astronomer. Think about that back in 1961 or 62, you want to be an astronomer. And she told me, boy, you ain't smart enough to be no damn astronomer. You might as well just go ahead and get your thing. So I said, well, why should I only go to school? But when I go to Greater Philly, they do this assessment, this educational assessment, social assessment, psychological assessment, and all those kind of things. And when we talk about what a man needs, when he talk about hope and empowerment, one of the main things guys need to come home is a little compassion. A little compassion. Because this guy named Mr. Bello showed me some compassion. And most times when you go into prison, you're just a statistic. You take your test, you move on. But somehow this guy showed me some compassion. He sat me down and said, man, you're reading at a second grade level, your comprehension skills are third grade, your math skills are second grade. I said, yeah, okay, I'm dumb, I don't go to school, yeah, so what? He said, man, but your IQ is above average. He said, you can do this work. He enrolled me in his GED class. I took the test, about 50 guys took the test, And I went in there saying, oh man, this thing is tough. And I thought I was dumb. I had no confidence. I had no self-esteem. And I actually thought I failed that test. But when the test came back, Mr. Bello said, hey, Tyrone, I said, Mr. Bello, how many points I have to make up on the test and get my GED? He said, Tyrone, actually, you passed. I said, I passed? He said, yeah. That kind of blew me away. He said, not only that, you got the highest score in the class. I said, what? And you know the first thing came to my mind? Thinking negatives, low poor self-esteem. I said, if I got the highest score, everybody who took the test must be dumb as hell. You know what I mean? So, and so when we talk about compassion, guys, people just need to give guys. I mean, I got to applaud the mayor on this point that he in an attempt to create an environment where a guy can get a job, he put out this thing where businesses will get a $10,000 tax credit if they who?
Mayor Street.
Okay, Mayor Street. Well, which one it was, it's a good thing. You know what I mean? But the problem is, there's still this stigma. Because a lot of companies, $10,000, well, not taking advantage of it. And so, I mean, I have a whole lot of books here. But I won't leave it there because I know we run out of time. But I think guys need not only support, and I think Tina said a really great thing. I remember back in the day, parole and probation, they were basically social workers. Now they're cops. They got guns. I'm telling you, every time I go down there, man, my hand get to sweat, man. I get to stand. I can't even talk. I was sitting from my parole, you know. I mean, it's almost like I'm doing something wrong. I mean, it's a horrifying experience, you know. And so, but the guys actually need support. I mean, parole agents should be finding guys, helping guys get jobs. You know, I mean, 1/3 of it, just to show you the impact of mass incarceration and the impact it had when George Mosley talked about the collateral consequences. When they graded first, there were 7 state prisons, 5,000 prisoners, 500 lifers. The budget's about $180 million a year. The day I walked out of graded first, there's 28 prisons, 51,000 prisoners, 5,000 lifers. The budget is $2 billion. And you know, this whole conversation that we have in the community now about we're closing 27 schools, 27 schools, building 3 more prisons at $600 million, $75 million to operate them. And they closed the school to save how much money? $24 million. Incredible. So I mean, these kind of meetings, discussions, they are so important and they're valuable. Because a lot of people, as Cameron said, are busy going their lives and they're not having really stopped and take stock of what's really going on. And I got to applaud New York. I mean, New York is doing some great things. The prison population is coming down, they're closing prisons. Out of state, I don't know, Pennsylvania, we building
Horrible.
Money.
It's incredible. So I'm in there, so thank you so very much.
So just a brief recap of some items that I think can constitute an outline from which we can work to try to make it easy to come back to society. Once you leave from behind those walls, and this whole thing is called breaking down the walls, right? And this panel discussion was humanizing incarceration. Well, I think one of the things that we can certainly say is that these are human beings, aren't they? And this is evidence beyond a reasonable doubt that people are not criminals. People commit crimes.
Right.
All right. Give this panel another hand. And so Tyrone made the point so eloquently that when they return, they need to be met with compassion. Don't you agree? Tina established that we have to do something about those collateral consequences. And among the many points that Mr. Holmes made, we have to understand that people are changed on the inside. So you can't do everything on the outside. You got to do something to address the trauma that they've experienced while they were in prison. Ty, you know, out of the mouth of babes. You know, we learned about some of the things that happen in the system to our young people, but we also got some hope because young people can get their record expunged. And if there's anybody who was arrested and not convicted, you need to know that the record of that arrest is out there for the public to see, but you can get that expunged. Thanks so much, Ty. And finally, Brother Foster let us know that you got to find something, a power that often is beyond the power that we can get from anything in this life to help us through. All right, now we got people, here they are right here. They sort of look like referees. They're going to make these microphones available to anybody who has a question. We've got a good 10 minutes, 15 minutes for questions, okay? Remember, no speeches.
To the panel, we appreciate you coming out today. As someone who was formerly incarcerated, this question can go to all of you. In terms of preparing someone, helping prepare someone for coming out of a prison setting, how can on-site oversight be helpful? Tyrone, first, please.
How can I say it again?
On-site oversight. Can I say a little more?
Yeah.
When I speak about oversight, I speak about people from the community being involved, being in the prisons physically, to kind of keep an eye on things, make sure things function to a higher level than what they function at this particular time.
Okay. I think that's very important.
Yeah.
I think one thing that needs to be always remembered that we're talking about, things that we can do. I think one thing that always we need to remember is that everything that is done, all these things that we talked about that is being done in the prison system, is being done on your behalf.
Right.
This is your money, your tax dollars, it's your prison. So you should know that. So if you're listening and saying, damn, I hate all this stuff that's going on, they're taking the money out of your wallet, and that's paying for what's being done. So I think we need to understand, and maybe sometimes I think the compassionate part doesn't resonate enough to motivate us, but maybe the financial part will. So the fact that you can't get the car you want to get or do some of the things, some of that is because they're taking your tax money and putting Todd in jail.
Right.
So understand that, so maybe we need to be a little motivated. But I also believe that as a community, we need to be involved in the system more.
Right.
I mean, it's important that when someone commits a crime against the community, shouldn't the community be the one who determines what the punishment is?
Yes. Right.
Why is some outside entity making that decision? And why are they sending people out that are worse than they were when they went in?
Right.
So I'm thinking the community has a vested interest in being more involved. And I think it talks about, especially when a person is close to coming home. They need networking, they need support, they need encouragement, they need opportunities. And the community, I think, is the people that are best situated to do that. So I do think that's very, very important.